Welcome into the 5-6 Golf Show. I'm Tony Altieri. That is Riku Mukherjee, and we have a special guest tonight. It's Chris Caldwell, our friend from the football show, the Fantasy Football Gods. Him and Rick telling you everybody should be play every week in fantasy football. Chris, also a high-ranking government official, so we appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Yeah, man, let's go.
Yeah, so the reason Chris is on with us tonight is we have our own little one and done going on, creator content one and done for the PGA season. And currently Chris is kicking the shit out of every one of us. Chris, congratulations. Big lead, you and Jake, 1 and 2 in the one and done standings currently.
Yeah, man, blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. So, yeah, I mean, first place, I got to come brag a little bit. And also, I'm going to be at Waste Management this Thursday in person. So, yeah, let's talk about it. I'm excited. I need you guys to give me some winners.
Yeah, well, obviously, Rick and I, who are dead last in the one and done event with all of our creators, we should be asking you for guidance on who we should be picking. That. Obviously, Rick, neither you or I hit anybody last week at Pebble Beach. A weird, funky event, got pushed into Monday. And one of my most hated guys of all time, Justin Rose, ends up winning the tournament. Like, I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but it was kind of weird because of what happened with how things finished on Sunday and Monday. It was like he kind of popped up out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, Justin Rose is leading after the third round. And then he ended up winning the damn thing. It was crazy.
Yeah, man, it was pretty frustrating for me because by the time Wednesday rolled around and I wrote it up on Discord for everyone that, is new to the channel or whatever, but follow us on Discord because I usually put out a little article on Wednesdays talking about which way I'm leaning towards because we get more, weather projections and ownership by Wednesday. And I decided on Wednesday that I was going to fade everyone except the people playing Monterey on Saturday. That included my DraftKings, that included my bets. Every single guy I bet was playing Monterey Peninsula on Saturday because of the winds and the weather. And the one guy from that was playing Monterey Peninsula on Saturday that I did not bet was Justin Rose. So I had the correct stack. I picked the correct group of players to choose from, even though things got a little messed up with the whole delay and all that stuff. But the guy who ended up winning came out of that stack, and I just didn't bet Justin Rose because I just never bet Justin Rose. And I just skipped over his name. I went with Hoagie. I went with, all the other guys that were playing in that stack that I liked, and I just skipped over Justin Rose and didn't bet him. He looks like he's on the comeback trail. He played really well. I watched some of his final round this morning. He's kind of been trending in the correct direction. It looks like his iron play is back, and looks like he's making a little bit of comeback at the age of 42 years old, which is pretty surprising.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, I mean, you had put it and you called it in the Discord, which I remind everybody, if you're not on the Nickel City Mafia Discord channel, you need to get signed up. It's a great place. Rick puts out a great little write-up on Wednesdays before the tournament and kind of aggregates all the key things that are coming out in the industry, what people are talking about. And the weather stack was really the thing, right? And you know that I'm not a big fan of weather stacks because it can be weird the way that it affects the flow of the tournament. But you called it. You said on Saturday it would be terrible weather, and the guys who were playing Monterey Peninsula would have the best opportunity to get through the cut. You didn't want to be playing Pebble Beach because the wind, it's more exposed at that course. That's exactly how it played out. It's just that bad weather extended all the way into Monday and screwed everything else up. The guys who had that stack that played that course rotation where they were on Pebble Beach first or whatever, but ended on Monterey Peninsula, ended up being the guys who got through. There was a higher percentage of guys because that course just played 2 or 3 strokes easier than Spyglass, which oddly enough was the most difficult this week. And we ended up with, as you said, Justin Rose comes out of that stack and wins. I had a bad problem from you could ask Mike this, but from I think 2006 until 2009, I think I bet Justin Rose in every single major, and he never came through. So I've decided and sworn off of him forever. But it is what it is. Weird, funky event. They need to move it. It's like you and I were talking about, Rick. Yeah. If they move that to the summertime, to the fall, you get much better weather, and I think you get a much better tournament, and I think you get better players. It's just in a weird place where everybody's going to play the Farmers, everybody's going to play Waste Management, everyone's going to play the Genesis because it's Tiger's event. And this beautiful course that hosts the U.S. Open is just not going to get the love that it deserves, and you get these terrible fields, which is what we saw.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is opposed to going and playing Pebble Beach. I just think it's a combination of the fact that it's a pro-am, which makes the rounds really long. The weather at this time of the year in Northern California is not great. And it's just in a tough spot in the schedule because everyone's gearing up to play Waste Management, which is obviously an elevated event now. And then, the Farmers the week before it. So it's in a weird spot, which means weak fields. And one thing I did realize from the leaderboard, next year when we get around, and if it's in the same spot in the schedule, we just got to play. I mean, every single guy on the leaderboard was not a bomber. Like, these guys were not people that are long off the tee. Brendan Todd, Justin Rose, who won, and also the longest hitter that was in contention like all week was Keith Mitchell. And he's a pretty long off the tee, but he was like the only one that I was looking at that was not like a kind of a short hitter off the tee. So just distance is not important, obviously, at that tournament, and just play people that are good with approaches and good at putting. So weird tournament. I'm ready to move on, man. This is Super Bowl week. This is I would say people were saying it's the winter major, I guess people are calling it. The tournament where everyone's going to tune in. It's the lead up to the Super Bowl on Sunday. Chris, like you said, he's going to be there on Thursday. It's like the biggest partying, drinking event of the year. Most attended probably sporting event in the country all year. And we have a loaded field, man. It's an elevated event, $20 million purse, $3 million to first place. It's going to be really, really exciting this week. I'm ready to talk about it.
Yep, it's a great field. Before we jump into it, I do want to remind everybody, if you're not subscribed to the Nickel City Mafia channel, do that. It goes a long way to helping us provide all this content for free. Every one of the guys on this show has a hand in other shows. It's something that we love to do. And obviously, we're covering a wide array of things. It is Buffalo centric, the channel, but obviously you two guys are Ravens fans. So it's not like we're excluding everybody. And of course, Rick and I, every single week, every single tournament, we're talking about PGA, giving out our picks. We've been pretty successful over the last couple of years, Rick, both on DraftKings and with the betting picks. And now we've ventured into this new thing where we have a competitive one and done, not only the league that all of us are in, but also we have a larger one that you and I are in, Rick, with a bunch of other guys, which is pretty funny. We'll get into that at the end of the show. But let's go ahead and jump into the tournament, and we'll start the breakdown. Chris, any thoughts before we get into it?
No, man, I'll just say that, I never bet golf whatsoever before watching your guys' show last year, and I kind of cleaned up. I mean, I went on a little heater last year, so I'm excited to be a part of the show and just, soak it in and ask some questions, and let's pick some winners. I'm jacked up.
I love it, dude. And this, Rick mentioned it. This is an elevated field. It's inarguably the best field of the year. You've got basically every guy in the world golf rankings inside the top 20 here. Sans a couple guys. Here's the one guy I did before we jump into it. Where the hell is Will Zalatoris? Why is Will Zalatoris not playing in this field? Of all the guys, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but this is a course where typically shitty putters putt very, very well and win this tournament. It's made for Will Zalatoris. Where the hell is he?
That's a good question. I didn't even realize he wasn't in the field, but these elevated events, you get to miss one per year or per season. So I guess this is the one he's missing. So we'll see him in every single one after this, I'm assuming.
Well, we don't have Will Z, but we've got basically everybody else. The top of the board, all the guys on the DraftKings scoring, that is the salary from $9,000 all the way up to $11,000. We've got John Rahm, McIlroy, Scheffler, Finau, Xander Schauffele, Max Homa, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, you name it. This is the who's of PGA golf. For me, I'm just going to throw it out there. There are three guys that I really, really like. Two of them are right next to each other. That's Justin Thomas and Colin Morikawa in this range. The other guy that I think I'm going to end up playing quite a bit on, and he was in the running for my one and done pick, is Tony Finau. I recognize his course history isn't great here, but his form has been phenomenal. This is a home game for John Rahm. John Rahm, he went to ASU, so this is in his backyard. Scotty Scheffler, obviously the champion from last year. But Rick, what do you like here? And then we'll go to you next, Chris. But where does your eye float? Where is their value above $9,000? Who are the guys that are going to be forgotten in this range?
Yeah, man. I'm going to go right to the top. John Rahm has been on a complete tear over the last month or so, a couple months, and he's just winning left and right. He had one bad round on a Sunday or Saturday at Torrey, and he was in the final group, so that happens. He could have easily won that tournament if he just played well on Saturday, but he's an Arizona State guy. He has pretty good history here, nothing but like top 10s and top 15s here. I think 11,000 is honestly probably a really good price for him. I mean, I think that's value. I think he should still be priced above 11,000. And the only reason why he's not like 11,500 is because Rory's in this field, who's number one player in the world at the moment. So I like Rahm right at the top. Him and Rory are going to be the highest owned guys in the $10,000 range. After them, it looks like it's going to be coming in is going to be Xander. So it looks like Scotty and Tony are going to be nice pivots from those three guys. So obviously Scotty's the defending champion. He went to a playoff last year with Patrick Cantlay. Course suits him well. We know that already. And the thing with Scotty is that his putting's been pretty bad over the last 6, 7, 8 months, ever since he won the Masters. So that's why he hasn't won a tournament. People don't tend to like to talk to somebody that hasn't won in a while. So nice pivot here would be Scotty Scheffler at the top. But for me, it's Rahm at the top. And then I know you said you like Justin Thomas and Colin Morikawa, but I'm looking at the name right below those two, and that's the guy that lost to Scotty Scheffler in the playoff last year. It was Patrick Cantlay. He is looking to come in. He's looking like he's going to be the lower owned out of that little group right there of Maximum, JT, Morikawa, and Cantlay. So I'm going to take the lowest owned guy there, who I think has high upside and high win equity at this event. And I'm going to roll with Rahm and Cantlay as my two favorite plays up here.
I love the call. Cantlay, it's surprising you mentioned that. I'd forgotten that Cantlay was in that playoff with Scheffler last year. And it's funny, you mentioned Scheffler's putting. And when you look at what he did when he went on that 6-week run where he won 3 times inside of 6 weeks, this is kind of where it all kicked off. And I mentioned it off the jump that this is a place where we traditionally see terrible putters putt very well. 2018, when Gary Woodland won it, he won 4 strokes putting. Chez Reavie, who's a terrible putter, this was a course where he would always show up and putt very, very well. Corey Connors gained strokes on the greens around here. Hideki Matsuyama, all of these guys that we would consider all team no putt, they show up and putt very, very well at this place. And looking at the greens, the course is a hodgepodge of different types of grass. Like, it's officially, I think, Bermuda grass is what the greens are, but when you read like the makeup of the grasses on the fairways, the rough, everything, it's this hybrid version of like 5 or 6 types of grass, but it tends to be very, very fast. And what we typically see on fast greens is crappy putters tend to putt better. I don't know why that is, but on tour, we just see these guys on these very fast greens putt very, very well. The only outlier in terms of green speed was the one year that Ricky won it, when it was like an absolute torrential downpour, like the last part of the tournament. But he still gained like 9 strokes putting that week. Chris, as we're kind of breaking down the top of the board here, is there anybody that you like that we haven't touched on, or is there anybody that you think is like, man, I think we're missing something if we're not talking about him?
I just think the coolest stat of the top of the board is in 5 years, Jon Rahm has never finished better than 9th or worse than 13th. Like, statistically, that is like unreal that between 9th and 13th, 5 years in a row. So yeah, I mean, you can't argue about the way the guy's form is right now and his history here. He's going to be in the final 2 or 3 groups no matter what on Sunday. I'm interested to hear you guys talk more and in depth about Justin Thomas, because he probably has him, Xander, and Rahm have the best track record here. But JT's form recently is just doo-doo. So I want to hear whether you're more into like recent form this week or, tournament history. So just talk to me a little bit about JT, and then, whether you're into the recent form thing or course history.
Rick, you want to jump off on that one first?
Sure, yeah. I don't really think tournament history is that important here. I would think recent form is more important here. The thing with JT is, for me, I don't know why, but like, I just get this, like, I always get this feeling with JT that I just never really like playing him until he gets to Florida. I think when he gets to Florida, he's comfortable at home in the Florida swing, and then when he gets into major season stuff like that, I think that's when Justin Thomas really gets going. And I know he's obviously won in Hawaii and stuff in the past, but like, I just feel like this stretch of the schedule, I mean, JT is not really like the guy that I'm leaning towards, and it looks like he's going to be, because of his history here, he's going to be coming in pretty highly owned. So I don't know, man. It's tough to argue with, an 8th, a 13th, back-to-back thirds before that. But like you said, he's not playing that great recently. There's a reason why he's, 9,800. This is Justin Thomas, who historically is one of the best golfers on tour. In reality, he should be priced in the 10K range. Why is Justin Thomas not priced above Tony Finau or Xander Schauffele? There's a reason why DraftKings has our algorithm set up why Justin Thomas is below these guys. He's below Max Homa, who, has never, until recently, he's just been kind of winning some events recently, but Justin Thomas has 2 majors. This guy is a player. It's like, he should be priced ahead of Max Homa. He's a better golfer than Max Homa. So there's a reason why he's priced at 9,800. I get it. He has the number 1 tournament history rank according to Tony's model, which is a little scary to fade, but I think that the 2 guys below him, Colin Morikawa and Patrick Cantlay, are the better guys to play in this range. So I think, to answer your question in short answer, I think I'd rather lean more on recent form than tournament history. What about you, Tony?
Yeah, I tend to be the same way. If you look at last week, Justin Rose's tournament history wasn't great at Pebble, but in terms of form, he had been coming in playing in really, really well. So I tend to ride when guys are hot, you pick the hot hand, like you play that guy. And where things all kind of come together, and Scotty Scheffler's a perfect example of this, is you had a guy who would come in great form last year coming into this event. And it was a course where he had played well the previous year, where his one aspect of his game, with the shortcoming that he has on the greens, it's mitigated at this place. The one thing that I would say about Justin Thomas here that why he does so well is typically he's a very good around the greens player. This place has a premium for playing around the greens. We see a lot of guys, like when we saw Webb Simpson beat Tony Finau, like just make putts and chip things in from off the green. It just happens at a higher frequency at this place than anywhere else. And then the other thing is, JT has not played very well off the tee. If you look at his last 2 tournaments, he's finished, I think, 25th, and he's lost strokes off the tee. That's a weird thing for him to be losing strokes off the tee. But at this course, you can absolutely bomb the ball. Like, you can hit it as far as you want. The rough is not bad. Even if you hit it off of the fairway into like the native areas, you can still get out of there and hit shots. So if we're going to get the version of JT that we've seen the last 2 tournaments, where he's not the best off the tee, but he can gain around the greens and on the greens, like, I'll take that bet. And the only thing that I would say is, just in terms of long-term form, when I look at Justin Thomas versus Xander, Homa, and Patrick Cantlay, I would put him slightly above every one of those guys. So I feel like I'm getting a discount at $9,800 versus the other guys, but I can't argue anything that Rick said with how those other guys are coming in. Colin Morikawa is actually the best guy in this range. Like, we watched him gag it away. Don't get me wrong, I had a ticket on him and it absolutely murdered me. But the guys had a 2nd and 3rd place finish coming into here. This is a place where he played very well last week. So even though JT and him are right there, I still feel like there's value in both of those guys in comparing the long-term version of them versus where they are right now.
Right. And then one more person that we haven't really talked about yet. So Tony Finau, I would think he's the lowest owned of the top 5 or 6 guys on the board, just because he's missed 3 out of 4 cuts here. I know he's hot this year, but it's not really a name that you're used to seeing above Xander, above JT, above Colin, above Hideki. So just tell me, where is he just going to be ultra low owned this week?
My opinion, Rick, and then I'll let you answer it, is he's never low owned. Like, even when he's coming in low, like, he always gets this bump. It's like him and Xander, even if nobody wants to play him for whatever reason, they always end up garnering ownership. But I do agree with your analysis in that at his price range with the other guys he's around, people are like, that's too much. But when people start hearing that he's under-owned, or like he's going to come in sub 15%, like, I feel like he'll start to gain steam as we get closer.
Yeah, that's one interesting thing about Tony is, like, whenever I used to play DraftKings back in the day when Tiger Woods was in tournaments, it would always be like ownership projections for Tiger Woods be like, you should just always add an extra 5 to 10% for Tiger Woods. I feel like for Tony Finau, for whatever reason, like whatever ownership projections are saying, you should always add an extra 5% of him, because people.
Why is that? Why do you think that is? I didn't see him as like the S on the chest, like, popular guy. I mean, maybe I'm not that in tune, but why is that?
he's just a stats machine. And when people run these optimizers and they run these, looking for the best value in a certain range, his name just pops all the time. So people like, especially in like higher stakes tournaments on DraftKings and stuff like that, you'll see Tony Finau is always but like always more over owned than his projections right now. And I just think it's because of how much of a machine he is when it comes to stats and stuff like that. And he's just, he really doesn't have, like, obviously we know he's not a great putter, but like his off the tee game and his approach game is always really solid. And the one thing about Tony Finau now is that he is a much different golfer now than he was like even a year ago. He is much better now. He has a couple wins under his belt now, so he has that like that choke factor kind of gone too. So people like tend to like playing Tony Finau, but I do agree that I think he's going to be the lowest owned in this range, just because I think people will rather flock to Xander, who has better course history here, and then maybe try to get the extra money to get up to Scotty, Rory, or John Rahm up there.
Yeah, I mean, I think when, all of the things that I was saying about JT here, you can apply to Tony Finau. The one area where Finau, we've seen him struggle a little bit is around the greens. But again, we watched him. He should have won the year that Webb Simpson basically walked him and then ended up winning here. Finau gagged it away. But to Rick's point, this is a different version of Tony Finau. This is a guy that's won 3 times in 6 months. Like, it's just, he is a new guy. And I think this looks to be the year where he starts making a coming out party. And again, when you're talking about like picks and one and dones and things like that, take the high owned guy that nobody wants to play. Like, that's the rule of thumb. And so you figure out who the low owned guy is up here in the, the high nines and in the 10s and 11s. And the guy that everybody's fading is the guy you should play. And right now it feels like it's Finau.
Yeah. We didn't talk about any of these guys below Patrick Cantlay. You want to talk a little bit about them? We got
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Who the hell is Tom Kim?
Who is he? He's 20 years old. He might win this tournament.
Yeah,
exactly. Tell me who he is, because I'm above, I wouldn't say I'm a casual golf fan, a little bit more than that, but this name is new to me. I've only heard it for like 3 weeks now. Tell me who Tom Kim is. Why does he have a chance to win this tournament, even though very rarely, maybe only one time ever, someone's first career win is at this tournament?
Yeah, man. He was a stud. He was born in Korea, and then he came to America. He speaks English really well, and then he eventually ended up going the Asian tour route instead of going to like college and playing golf here in the States when he was young. So he actually was good enough to play on the Asian tour, and then like when he was like 17 or 18 years old, he just went on an absolute tear on the Asian tour. I think he won like 5 or 6 times on the Asian tour, something like that. And he just became like a very, very household name on the Asian tour circuit. And then, eventually, slowly but surely, he made his way over to the PGA Tour, and boom, right off the bat, by the age of 20, he has 2 PGA Tour wins. He's solid on like pretty much every facet of his game. He's exciting to watch. He's, he played in the President's Cups this year. He was like phenomenal to watch on. He's very likable. The thing that I like that, most people that watch golf on a weekly basis compared to people like Sungjae or Hideki is that he speaks English really fluently. So like whenever he gives interviews and stuff like that, he's very, very likable as a person. So I'm a big fan. I know Tony's a big fan. I just love watching him play. I mean, he might not be a household name now for casual fans like you, but I think within the next few months, he's definitely going to be a household name for everybody.
Yeah. So for an outright ticket, you can't possibly bet him on an outright ticket, right? You said 20 years old, he's never played here before. This is an absolute bloodbath of a field. We're not putting any Tom Kim tickets out there, are we? Or are we?
The only thing that I would say is the kid's won 2 times in the last 6 months already on tour. And then oddly enough, if you look at leaderboards, there's nothing in relation to the courses that match up. But the Wyndham where he has won is a course that we see a lot of similar guys. He won there, Webb Simpson. The Players is another one where we see a lot of guys have the same kinds of success at Waste Management in those tournaments, and they have nothing to do with each other in terms of the style of course that it is. It's just for whatever reason those guys tend to pop, and he just won at Wyndham. So to your point, I don't think a lot of people are going to be betting him or picking him for one and done, but to Rick's point, like it would not surprise me to see him on Sunday, like charging on Sunday or with the lead with 8 or 9 holes left. I think it's a big ask in this field, to your point, to try and leap all of these guys that are top players in the world. But we just watched this kid finish second at the Tour Championship with arguably everybody else who's at the top of the list here.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I wouldn't be surprised if he won, but I'm not going to be betting him this week. I'm not going to be playing him this week. Down below in the lower 9K range, I like Sungjae. I think he's been playing pretty good golf so far this season. His last win came at a desert course, so we know he has good history at desert courses. His history here, let's see what we got here. Yeah, not bad. 3 of 3 made cuts, 17th to 34th and the 7th. So I definitely like Sungjae out of all these guys. I get the people are going to be flocking towards Hideki a little bit. I mean, he used to be like the man here, back-to-back wins. I think a runner-up before that. But I mean, something just about Hideki is just off a little bit. I mean, I know he played well at Farmers a couple weeks ago, but I don't know. It's just not my thing. I'd rather go to Sungjae. But I will tell you guys one thing. If you guys want to get different here, the two guys that no one is playing whatsoever, Victor Hovland at 9,300 and Matthew Fitzpatrick at 9,000. Victor Hovland has 2 pretty bad missed cuts here in his career. He just finished 13th at Pebble Beach earlier today. So, I mean, I get that. I get why he's coming in so low. No one wants to play that with the names around him. But the one name that I'm interested in, Tony, is Matt Fitzpatrick at 9,000. He finished 10th here last year. Last week
he was hurt.
Yeah, so last week we got the information pretty late in the week on Wednesday that he did an interview, said he has a thing in a minor neck injury or whatever. He was basically treating Pebble Beach like a warm-up event. And when I heard that in the interview, I was like, okay, I'm out, completely out. If he's going to be treating this like a warm-up event, I don't imagine he's going to make the cut. But he missed the cut. He's had he's going to have a few days to recover, relax. And he's going to be like 5% owned. No one's playing him, and he's one of the best players in the world. So I kind of like that. I mean, you don't have to get too crazy here. I mean, you can play Matt Fitzpatrick in 10-15% of your lineups and be 2 to 3x over the field. So I don't know. He said the neck thing has been it comes and goes for him. So what's to say that it's not gone for him this weekend? He comes out and plays well at $9,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big ask for me watching, because I watched him struggle basically through 3 rounds last week. And again, I mean, we've been there when your back hurts, your neck hurts, whatever, when you're playing golf. It's tough. Like any little nagging injury can throw you off one way or another. But to your point, he finished 10th here last year. You go back and look at his stats from the Wampo last year, and he gained basically in every aspect. The one thing that I would say that I would caution like a one and done, or even betting in some respects with him, is his skill set is he's great with long irons and he's great on the greens. And at a place where, like I was talking about, we see really shitty putters kind of rise and putt well over the course of 4 days. Like that's where he kind of is great. Like tough, like the US Open is a perfect example of that. Really, really difficult conditions. You have to play long irons well, and putting is at a premium. And, again, he beat Will Zalatoris, who's a terrible putter in that event. But I just feel like I need him at events that play really, really tough. And this traditionally isn't, a tough course. This is a place where it's like bomb and gouge, go low, bomb it out there. And it doesn't seem for me to fit for him. But I do agree with you, the ownership play. I think if you're doing DraftKings lineups, or like we were saying, you want to get really funky from a one and done perspective, nobody's playing Matthew Fitzpatrick this week. Yeah. And it's a great place to get an ownership leverage.
Yep. All right. So we talked about this range ad nauseum. Let's give our 3 best plays in this range and then move on to the AKs. Tony, you can go first.
Yeah, I'll say JT Morikawa, and then Finau Cantlay are 3 A and B for me. So those 4 guys.
Chris?
All right, Rory, Morikawa, and Sungjae.
All right, I got Rahm, Cantlay, and Sungjae. Those are my 3 favorite plays in this range.
We didn't talk about Rory. It's so funny, but yeah, he's been fantastic. He's been fantastic in Europe. I think he has a win and a 4th place finish.
I guess we should talk about him. I mean, he is the number 1 player in the world. He just won in his last event. I mean, what are your thoughts on Rory? I'd rather go to Rahm, honestly. I remember playing Rory in this event last year. He had not last year, 2 years ago. He had a 13th place finish here. He doesn't usually play this event. The only reason he's playing it is because it's an elevated event. I'm not really feeling Rory this week. I mean, I feel like this is his warm up event for the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I mean, I for purposes of one and done, I'm saving him for majors. So he's out for me there. And then from a betting perspective, I can't bet him. I mean, he's like 6-8 to 1. Like can't do it. I won't go there. And from DraftKings perspective, I mean, he always gets ownership. So it's like in all three of the aspects that I would use Rory, this just doesn't fit what I like to do.
It's a tee to green tournament, and there's no better tee to green player in the world than Rory. So if, like you said, if he can just get there with the putter, and like you said, it's usually a shitty putter. So I don't know. I think it's weird we didn't talk about him, and no one in our one and done took him. That's a little alarming. I'm just saying.
I just think he's
a good one that Rick and I are in. Nobody took him either.
Yeah, I just think he's a good save for a major, obviously, and I've seen it from Rory before. He loves playing overseas during this time of the year, like January, December, all that stuff, and he plays really well overseas. And then whenever he gets to America to start his PGA Tour season, it takes him like an event or two to get his legs under him. He usually comes in around like Torrey Pines, Farmers Insurance, and stuff like that. And that's a tournament he's never won. So he usually comes in, he plays all right, maybe gets like a top 20, top 30, something like that. But he never really wins these tournaments that he plays his inaugural event for the PGA Tour season. And I think that's going to be the situation again this week. I wouldn't be surprised if he won. Obviously, he's the best player in the world. But I'm expecting more of a middling 15th to 16th place finish for him this week.
And just last thing, is Max Homa's price, is it now bro-flated? Like he's like the ultimate PGA Tour bro, right? I mean, that price and his odds to win are definitely inflated just because like he's the new like cool guy, like hot all of a sudden. He's will do interviews on the golf course. Is he bro-flated?
Here's the thing. Like I've been on Max Homa like before he was like a thing. Like I've hit him on 5 of his 6 wins. I'm a huge fan of his. He's an LA guy. He lives in Arizona now, so this is quote unquote a home game for him as well too. So I get why the price is there and why the odds are what they are. I do think that they are elevated, and I do think his odds. So if you want to bet Max Homa, like don't do it now. Wait until like Wednesday evening because I do think they're going to drop. But yeah, I think here to your point, Chris, I think he's going to be a forgotten man between Xander and Thomas. So if you want to play the ownership game in DraftKings, that's a good pick. Also in one and done because everybody kind of picked him earlier. We just saw him win, and so everybody's going to be off of him. So if he's still an option, I do think it's a great high floor, low ceiling pick as well too, where Homa's got great course history, and you're going to get a guy that's probably going to finish top 50.
Yep, I agree. I agree with everything Tony said.
All right, dropping down to the 8K since we beat that to death. So a much smaller range, but it's headlined by Cam Young. Everybody's on Cam Young and Tagala this week, it feels like. That's all I'm hearing about. Obviously, Montgomery, we've all been beating that drum for a while. Lowry and Fleetwood and Hatton, they've been playing in Europe. I actually inserted their finishes in here in my model. So they have some numbers where they actually didn't play tournaments, but they ended up doing well or having some statistics from those courses that they played over in Europe. So I put them into my model and tried to factor them in. And then the other guy at the bottom of this range, Ricky Fowler, a guy who has won here. This is one of those Fowler courses. This is an event where he has previously had success. But where do you go here? Chris, I'm going to toss to you as kind of the guy looking from the outside in, but what do you like in this range as a guy? Is there anything here, DraftKings betting one and done that piques your interest?
I like absolutely nothing in this range. I mean, I'm not a heavy DraftKings player, but when I was looking at this, I like the first thing that comes to my mind is why. Like I think I'm shoving in at least 2 of the higher price guys, maybe 3 if I can figure it out, and skipping this crap altogether. I mean, there's twice as many missed cuts in the last 5 years from these players than there is top 10s. So I'm not liking it. I'm not liking, I don't know. You guys are going to have to talk me into 1 or 2 players just so I can, have someone to play in this range. The only person I'm kind of on is Taylor Montgomery, but like he's putter extraordinaire. This course kind of fits the complete opposite of that. So I just need to hear who you guys like. I'm going to do a lot of listening because at first glance, I like absolutely nothing.
Rick, man, why don't you jump us off here?
I finally get to say it after so freaking long. I am playing Ricky Fowler this week. My God, it feels good to play him again. My second favorite golfer of all time. This guy's gained on approach for 5 straight events. He's playing good. Nothing but looks like during the swing season, he's been playing phenomenal. Like nothing but made cuts after made cut after made cut. He's been finishing in the top 15, top 20 in his last few events. This is a course that he plays well at. He knows these greens really well. He's won here before. I'm fired up to play Ricky again. I haven't clicked his name in DraftKings in what seems like 2 years. So I'm excited to play him. I think it's good value at 8,000. I was actually a little surprised to see him in the $8,000 range when I saw it, but he's coming in, not overly owned or anything like that. I mean, this range, like you said, the ownership is flocking towards Cam Young and Sahith Theegala, and then everyone else is pretty flat. I get that love. Theegala finished 3rd here last year. Cam Young just finished 2nd last week in Saudi Arabia, so he's playing good golf. But just from an ownership perspective, I don't know if I can play those guys if they're chalky. I do agree with Chris that most people are going to try to jam in 2 to 3 guys above this range and then drop down to the 7s and 6s. But if you want to get different, you can try to squeeze in a couple guys here. But the guy I like here is Ricky Fowler. I think he's playing good golf right now. Good value, 8,000, and he's going to be definitely in my lineups this week. And then I think beyond that, the only other guy that I would be potentially interested in would be Sam Burns. Sam Burns, he's kind of been hit or miss at this.
Can you wait for Florida with him though?
Yeah, I guess so, but he did play well his last time out at Torrey, and I think maybe he can ride a little bit of momentum there. He does have 3 out of 4 missed cuts here, so that's a little scary, but he's not going to be owned, and I think he's a good little squeeze play ownership wise between Cam Young and Sahith. So that'd be the only guy I'd be interested in, but I don't think I'm really going to get there either. I think Ricky Fowler's like the only name that I'd be clicking on in this range. Maybe Theegala just because he played well here last year, but that's about it.
Yeah, for me, the 2 names that are kind of sore thumbs that stick out to me in this range for opposite reasons. One would be Jordan Spieth at 8,700. When you talk about long-term form with all of these other names, we would consider Jordan Spieth, I guess, a super elite. He's won multiple majors, but he's not been playing very well as of late. In terms of consistency, we see him have these spike rounds where he's striking the ball well, his off the tee has been corrected, and then all of a sudden it just goes off the rails for him during the course of the tournament. We saw it last week at Pebble Beach where over a stretch, yes, it was super windy, but we watched him basically go double bogey, bogey to almost miss the cut after being one of the guys who was at the top of the leaderboard, and that would have been 2 weeks in a row that we would have seen that happen, or I should say the last 2 times he had been out. So Spieth, I'm completely off until I can see him kind of correct here, and this is a place where he hasn't had a ton of success. He had a 4th place finish in 21, but it's been a couple of missed cuts and a 60th place finish mixed in there as well. The other guy in this range that is a name that seems out of place is actually a guy that I really like, and that's Montgomery. He's been super hot. Everybody was on him at Farmers, and he disappointed coming in T31. But in terms of what he does well, he's phenomenal with the driver, and he's one of the best putters on tour. So I know I said I wasn't going to play Matt Fitzpatrick because he's a great putter and it's mitigated here, but Montgomery is also very good around the greens. I like him a lot, and I think because of what people saw at Farmers, a lot of people are kind of going to jump off of him in terms of DraftKings. So I love him for DraftKings this week. I don't think he's a bet because I really only think you can bet probably 20, maybe 30 guys in this field, and this is not the kind of event in this kind of field where I think he can win, but I love him on DraftKings this week. So Montgomery will definitely be mixed into my lineups.
I will say one thing. I agree with what you said earlier, Chris, with this being a very big tournament on off the tee and approach. I think approach is really important at this course. In Taylor Montgomery's
terrible
in his little like introduction to the PGA Tour, since the Fortinet Championship back in September. He hasn't gained more than half a stroke on approach in any event. It is all putter, 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 putter. And with that at this event, I think that's just gonna get him in trouble. Like, you need to be good with your irons here. I think, like you said, the greens here, they do get mitigated for bad putters, and I just don't think it's an advantage where he gets to use the flat stick this week. So honestly, I would just like Mike says here, I'd rather go to Shane Lowry right below him, who has better pedigree, is a better iron player, and he's going to be drinking some brewskis this week. So I think I'd rather
just because Lowry is Irish does not mean he's an alcoholic, Mike. Just throwing it out there.
But he likes to drink. We know that.
Number one, I posted that comment. Mike's on his personal one on here, Bills fan. But all I can remember is when Lowry won the Open Championship, and he was like, "Hell yeah, I got shit faced that night."
Yeah, he likes to drink. But I'm off of Taylor Montgomery this week. I don't think I can click that name.
Wrong spot for him, right? I mean, there couldn't be
it's a
worse
weird
field and worse track for him, right?
Yeah. I would. I don't think I could. I would get there with him this week. And I also, I know you said Jordan Spieth, but he's just looked really bad the last.
Oh yeah, no, he's been terrible.
I can't click that name. I'd rather go to Burns or Tagala below him.
Yeah, everybody kind of fits in the 8K range, and those were the two names that they seemed out of place in this range.
But Chris is definitely right when he says that this range is pretty ugly. Like you said, there's more missed cuts here than there are top 10 finishes. So I think the popular thing this week is going to be to skip this range completely. But if you want to try to win a GPP or something like that, I would recommend trying to fit somebody into your lineup from here. But if you're playing like cash games, like head-to-heads and stuff like that, you're probably going to want to skip this range and go down to the sevens below.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think if you're not playing Sahith Theegala or Cam Young, anybody else in this range is going to give you ownership leverage. To your point, though, is it real leverage? I don't know. I mean, Fowler's going to garner ownership, but there's enough people like myself who are just going to be like, okay, I'm off potentially chalky Ricky Fowler this week.
Not me. I'm playing him.
Dropping down into this next range of 7Ks, some familiar names, some new names, some guys we haven't seen in a while. But this is a range where, to your point, Chris, if you're going to go up and grab two guys in the 9 and 10Ks, whether it's two 10K guys or John Rahm and one of the guys in the 9Ks, you're going to have to drop down into the 7,000s to fill up your lineups. And so there are some options here. I'll jump in first on this one since we've kind of kicked it around, but no surprise to you, Rick. I do like Gary Woodland here. Of course, I like Gary Woodland everywhere.
Past champion.
Yeah, he has won this event before, but he is coming off of 2 missed cuts in a row at this course. Pendrith, who I was on last week, he didn't do anything great, but I think he's starting to round into form, and I do think that what he does well fits at this course. So I like Pendrith at 7,400. Those would be the two guys below 75 that I like. Taylor Moore also at 7,000 is another guy I like below that $7,500 threshold. Above 75, it's going to be Keegan Bradley and Alex Noren. Those two guys to me, they almost feel like auto plays to me. Noren, I want to say that he gained 7 or 8 strokes putting at this event one year, and he is a god awful putter. So this is a place, it's a comfort place for him. Keegan Bradley, the same thing. We're talking about a shitty putter on a place that mitigates it. And Keegan Bradley is a ball striking phenom. We saw him play really, really well in a stacked field at Farmers. So I love Keegan as well too. And then the other name that I will throw out there because nobody else will talk about him probably is Billy Horschel. Billy Horschel plays this event every year very, very well. He does not fit the mold. He is not long off the tee. And in these elite fields, we tend to forget about him. But let's remember, the guy won at Memorial in a very similar setup in terms of field strength. So Billy Horschel is another guy. So those would be the 3 guys above 7,500 and the 3 guys below 7,500 for me.
Yeah, man. You took the words out of my mouth with Keegan and Alex Noren. I really like those calls there, man. Alex Noren has been on fire. You can't deny the finishes. His last PGA Tour start was the Houston Open where he finished 4th. After that, it's been European Tour events where he's finished 2nd, 5th, and then another top 10 finish recently. And he finished T6 here last year. So I think Alex Noren's my favorite play here, above 7,500. Love the Keegan call. He played really well at Torrey a couple weeks ago. 5 of 5 made cuts here the last 5 years, so he plays good here. Nothing better than a 22nd, so that's a little concerning at here. But at 7,700, I think him coming in with pretty good form. He has the upside to finish in the top 10, so I definitely like the Keegan call. The one other name above 7,500 or 7,500 and above I like is KH Lee. This is a TPC course. We know that he plays really well at TPC courses in general. He had a runner-up finish here a couple years ago. And, you know, overall, I think he fits the mold pretty well. Approach play is good. Off the tee play is good. Not a great putter. So I definitely like KH Lee here just because it's a TPC course above 7,500. Him, Noren, and Keegan are my 3 favorite plays. Below 7,500, I'm going to roll with JT Poston. I think he's been playing really good golf recently, and he also 404 made cuts here. So he has pretty good history here. 6th place finishes last time out on PGA Tour, so he's good. Keith Mitchell, 7,400. I know he had to play today at Pebble. He was in contention, but pretty good history here. 3 out of 4 made cuts. A 10th place finish last year. He ended up finishing 4th at Pebble, so pretty good finish for him. I think this is a good spot for him. Other than that, the only other name that I could potentially click on below 7,500, Adam Hadwin, nothing crazy good for him, but he has made the cut here like every year forever. So not a bad play at 7,100 when you're probably looking for like a top 30 finish out of that price range. So yeah, 5 of 5 made cuts the last 5 years. Adam Hadwin at 7,100 is not a bad play for me. But yeah, that's all I really like. Brendan Todd, I mean, I know he did finish, he runner up today at Pebble Beach. The last 2 times he's played here, he's made the cut. So that's a little interesting. But with Brendan Todd, like we talked about, he's just an amazing putter. He's a really good around the green guy, but he's not the best off the tee or approach. So it's a little scary to play Brendan Todd, especially when he played so well this week and Pebble. So those are my guys in this 7K range. Chris, who you like?
So I have 2 that I love in this range. You guys have both talked about Keegan Bradley. I feel like he's an auto GPP play for me this week. Ball striker extraordinaire, struggles with the putter. That should all come to a head this week. Just love watching the guy play too. He's a very animated player, fun to watch. In good form. He's at good form at this track. So love Keegan Bradley. And then JT Poston. I feel like if you're playing cash games on DraftKings, or if you like to do like top 20, top 40 bets, JT Poston would be in all of my cash lineups. Yep. Or I would love him as like a T20 or T40 bet this week. I mean, the guy has finished in the top 40 4 years in a row. His last 4 finishes on tour are 6th, 21st, 21st, 21st. I mean, guy's super consistent. I don't know that he has win equity, but just playing super solid golf. And then a name that no one has said, and I need to hear, a minute or 2 from you guys on him, a player I love playing that has good form at this event and good recent form, Corey Connors. Tell me why not to play Corey Connors, because I'm literally all about it. He's my favorite player in this range. Talk me out of it.
So here's what I would say. I do like Corey Connors here. I thought you were going to say Chris Kirk. I was waiting because you're a Chris Kirk truther. So I was waiting for the Chris Kirk thing. But I will say this about Corey Connors. Connors is he hasn't been playing great as of late. So he is one of the better ball strikers. Where we see him struggle mightily is around the greens. Like we mentioned, like Victor Hovland, who's played here. Who is, I guess, like the rich man's version of Corey Connors. Like Hovland's missed the cut here in 2 renditions because he's not very good around the greens either. So that would be the only knock that I have on Corey Connors is that, I would worry about him around the greens. He's also a terrible putter. So, it's just one of those things where you've got guys like Luke List, who's in the next range, I believe, where he's a terrible putter, but he is very good around the greens. So that would be the only thing. I actually like Connors here as well, too. I like all 4 of those guys, Horschel, Connors, Bradley, Noren, all back to back to back. I think if you're doing a common build, you end up in that price range, which is if you're doing 10 or 20 lineups for DraftKings and you end up building where you have a 2 or 3 guy mix at the top, you'll always end up in that same range in the 7Ks, and you end up getting super chalky or grabbing the same guy over and over again. So I like the fact that there's 4 options priced very close to one another. But I can't fault you for Corey Connors. But your boy Chris Kirk is interesting to me. I'm not usually a Kirk guy.
Realize that he's been playing recently. Let's talk about why he can win this thing.
Yeah, and so that's the thing for me. Like I mentioned it with Rose, and one of the things that I tend to do is grab a guy who's playing really, really well. And if you look at Chris Kirk here recently, like the place where Kirk struggles traditionally is off the tee. Rick mentioned it. Approach is very important here, and he's just been a beast on approach. His last 2 tournaments at the Sony, he gained 5.5 on the field at Sony. He gained almost 4.3 on the field at the American Express. This is a place where he has had success. I think he's got a couple top 15 finishes. So especially at the price point at $7,300, I like Kirk a lot. Your point about a bet for like a top 20, a top 10, like I like that for Chris Kirk this week.
Yeah, I agree with the Chris Kirk call. I definitely like that. I think he's going to be a nice ownership pivot potentially off of JT Poston, who's coming in a little bit chalky. But for me, to get back to Corey Connors, it's just a pure ownership fade for me. He's coming as the chalkiest guy in the 7K range. Okay. When you click on Fantasy National and look at calculated ownership, he's the only guy that's in red, and which is super high ownership in the whole 7K range. So it's kind of we always talk about when there's a chalky guy above and a chalky guy below, and the guy in the middle gets squeezed out, and you like to play that guy. It's kind of a reverse squeeze for me, with Corey Connors being the chalky guy and me liking Keegan Bradley right next to him and Alex Noren right next to him, who are going to be lower owned than him. So for me, just a pure ownership fade. I don't think I can get to a chalky Corey Connors here, but I do get it. There's a reason why he's chalky is as people are seeing the fact that he's coming in with nothing but top 20 finishes. He's playing really good recently, and he has a pretty okay history here. So I get the love for Corey Connors. His bad putting gets mitigated here. But out of those 2 names that you just mentioned, I'd much rather go to Chris Kirk than Corey Connors when you're playing that GPP.
Let's talk about how Keegan kind of shoulda and almost won that tournament that Homa won a couple weeks ago. Let's not forget about that. He was that close.
Yep, absolutely. That's why I like him. Usually Keegan's somebody I like to play like on the East Coast, Northeast area, but he's been playing well all around. I think he's turned a corner in his game, and I think he's pretty close to a win sooner or later.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw him win at what was it at the Zozo like in October or November? Yeah, so he won a tournament. He's been playing very, very well. It's a new version of Keegan. He's lost a bunch of weight. He's talked about the changes that he's made in his diet and just in his routine, and he's much more dedicated. And obviously that's what we saw at Farmers. We saw him kind of pop. But Keegan's one of those guys, man, and Rick will tell you, like, he can go full Keegan. There's a reason why it is called full Keegan, is you can watch him just go absolutely sideways and die when he's playing phenomenal out of nowhere. And that's always the scary thing with Keegan. With all that being said, I do love the play. Like I said, those 4 guys are the guys for me in terms of like how I'm going to do construction, where I'll end up kind of filtering guys too. But, it's just one of those things where if you find somebody and you like it, like go with it. And I think because those guys are all going to be fairly popular, Connors being the only one that's going to garner a ton of ownership, I just think Keegan's a good pivot.
I got one more name for you guys. Where is he priced at? I just saw him. Where's Garrett Higo at? I just saw him.
Oh, he goes at 7,200.
7,200. Yeah, man. He's been playing pretty well. 21st year last year. He's been gaining on approach. I think he used to be with Claude Harmon, who's Butch Harmon's brother, and he got away from him and went to a new swing coach this offseason, which is why I think he's made a little change in his game and a change in his swing, and he's been playing well. So Garrett Higo, 7,200. I think this is a nice course for him where he can he's good off the tee and he's a good putter, and then his approach game has gotten a lot better recently. So that's why he's been playing well recently. So I like that name at 7,200.
Is he the lefty?
Yeah, he's lefty.
Never trust a lefty, dude.
That's why I don't play Brian Harmon.
Dude, it's just so hard to. I don't know. Other than Phil Mickelson, who's the best lefty golfer? I feel like you just don't see him, right?
I don't know. Mike Weir. Mike Weir.
Mike Weir. Yeah, he has won the Masters. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I like Higo, and to your point, like he's starting to play better. We've watched him string together 3 made cuts. He had a top 20 finish, I think, last week. So Higo's not a bad call. I don't know. I mean, I think there are options here that provide a little more like made cut equity than Higo. But again, I have to default to ride the hot hand. If guy's playing well and it's a course where he either hasn't played or he has shown that he's been able to make the cut even when he hasn't been coming in with good form, it's always a good move to roll with those guys. I mean, even Kurt Kitayama, who was, towards the top of Pebble and then kind of fell back at the end of the tournament, he's down here as well at 7,000 and basically at the floor at this range. So there's some options. I mean, look at the games right by Kurt Kitayama: Webb Simpson, Harris English, and Francisco Molinari. You rewind like 3 years ago, those guys were in the top 25 in the world. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep, pretty crazy, right? Webb Simpson's a past winner here.
Yeah, Simpson. We watched, like I talked. He walked Tony Finau, I think, 2 years ago here in this event.
Yeah.
All right, dropping down into the dumpster. We're down at the 6Ks. This is where you need to find a guy to fill out your lineup. If you're going 10K, couple guys in the 7s, or even a guy in the 8s, you're going to have to find a guy down in this range to fill out your lineup. I do want to start with one guy because Rick's on the larger string with our larger one and done tournament. One guy actually selected Brandon Wu as his one and done pick this week, which I thought was hilarious. Big Game James. Yeah. He is the man who picks the most obscure one and dones. And then when he gets shamed out of his picks every now and then, like he did, and that pick actually plays really, really well, he throws it in everybody's face. So last week at Pebble, James was like, I'm going with Harry Higgs. And we're like, Higgs? Like, why would you pick Higgs? Like, everybody busted his balls. He gets off Higgs. I think he pivoted to Matt McNeely, who ended up missing the cut. And then he blamed everybody for shaming him off of Higgs. And so he jumps in with Brandon Wu this week. And it was just like, of course you picked Brandon Wu, but he's rolling with it. But
Brandon Wu played well last week, man.
He did play well last week, but I feel like it's a week too late and it's a much stronger field.
Yeah.
I don't know, Rick. Who do you like down here in the 6Ks? If you had to come down here and grab some guys, there are some names that people know: Champ, Kisner, Hayden Buckley, Sam Ryder, guys that we've seen flashed on leaderboards. Vegas, who has good course history here. Callum Tarrant, who showed up really well last week. Is there anybody where you can feel like I'm going to play that guy and have a good amount of confidence in my lineups that he will make the cut?
I think the only two guys that I would feel confident about playing this week in the 6K range. One is going to be Sam Ryder. The guy has made 4 out of the last 4 made cuts here. We know his heroism last year when he made the hole-in-one and people went crazy. And obviously we saw him a couple weeks ago. He was he was dominating at Torrey Pines. And he kind of gagged it away a little bit on Sunday or on Saturday. And he ended up finishing 4th at Torrey Pines. So good finish for him there, coming in with a little bit of momentum. I think he's had a week to kind of mentally recover after blowing his chance at his first ever PGA Tour win. So I like Sam Ryder here. I think that's a pretty good price at 6,800 if you're looking for a made cut situation. He's obviously made the cut every year for the last 4 years. So I think you could stick Sam Ryder in a cash game lineup and be pretty confident about him making the cut. And the other guy that you mentioned, I like Johnny Vegas, man. I don't think that Johnny Vegas is a $6,700 golfer. I just don't think he belongs in the $6,000 range. He's a much better golfer than most of the guys around him here. So I know he's priced down here because he didn't play for a long time. He had shoulder surgery. So, his first start after shoulder surgery was at Torrey Pines a couple weeks ago, and he finished 25th. So I think he's perfectly healed up, ready to play. And I think that's pretty good value. 6,700, 30-30 in your model. In this entire range, he's the best guy in your model, which makes sense because he doesn't deserve to be a 6,700 golfer. He's a lot better than the golfers around him.
Yep. Yeah, no, I like Vegas. When you talk about his skill set, he is a beast off the tee. We see him get super hot with the putter, especially on Bermuda. So I do like the play there. The other guys that I like in this range, I like Russell Knox. I liked Russell Knox last week. He kind of disappointed down the stretch at Pebble, especially on Sunday. But I do like the course form here. He's got a couple of top 20 finishes here. He's got 4 straight made cuts, so I like that. Luke List, who I mentioned right below him at 6,900. Again, for all of the skill set things that I've been kind of talking about ad nauseum, I like List. And his form has been pretty good. His last 3 events, he's got a 25th, a missed cut, and an 11th. So I do like that. I like List on the West Coast as well. And then your boy, Rick, Scott Stalding's at 6,900. I like Stalding's here a lot as well, too. He just, to me, he's a different guy. He made a turn last year. He went from being like a guy who was barely hanging on to his tour card to a guy we saw compete in the Tour Championship. He consistently plays well. The ball striking is there. And this is a course where we've seen him, basically come in, and at a guy below $7,000, if you can watch a guy come in and make a cut, like that's what you want from those guys. So I like Stalding's here as well too.
Chris, you like anybody down here?
I was going to say Russell Knox. I think I'm going to have a T20 bet on. I like his short game. He's pretty strong and he shows well at this course, 4 straight unmade cuts. And then I'm going to bet Kevin Kisner, not to win, but probably a T20 because he's just a bro and he plays good at this course and he's made 2 straight cuts. So why the hell not? Barstool all the way. Let's go.
Yeah, Kisner, maybe it's a thing that I have. Like I have the same problem with Horschel. I just don't like the guy. Same thing with Kiz. So it's hard for me. I should remove that bias. But I can't roll with Kiz, but I'll throw out another name who's a similar skill set that this is a home game for him, is Party Martin Laird, dude. Like Martin Laird plays this course pretty well. I think he finished inside the top 15 here last year. He hasn't been great as of late, but he just tends to show up on the courses that he plays well on. And then right below him, another old guy that we've seen make cuts and has made a few here back to back is Stu Cink right below him. And no one is going to own either guy because nobody likes to play old guys. Like everybody wants to play like the next guy coming off the Corn Ferry Tour or the new guy off the European Tour. And those guys just, I think, provide some level of made cut equity at this event. So I like both of those guys too at 6,700.
Yeah. Just one note here: Lanto Griffin did withdraw from this tournament, so don't play him at 6,600. That news came out earlier today, so he did WD. So don't play him. Do you have anybody below 6,500? Anybody that you'd be interested in? I don't really have anyone, man. Ryan Moore showed a little bit last week. I don't really like him though. Mark Hubbard's a name. 6,300. It seems a little bit too low of a price for him. 37th in your model. That's pretty good. I don't really have anyone else. I guess Brandon Wu. If someone's playing him in one and done, we got to take a look at him, right? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Tony. You're on mute. Or we lost them audio wise. I don't know. Yeah. No, now you're. Oh, we lost you audio wise. Okay. Anyways, I can't hear you, Tony. I don't really have anyone else below 6,500. Anyone jump out to you, Chris? I don't really have any names down here, man.
Man. To be honest, I'd probably know like 5 people priced below 6,500. So I'm going to pass on that one. Yeah. But, just one more comment about Kisner. Can you imagine? He would definitely have the fans on his side if he was on the leaderboard, like going into Saturday.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Kisner is. I can't stand that guy.
He'll definitely. He's a fan favorite in the sense that he's like one of those guys that you could just play around with and enjoy it, but like. I don't know if he's really like a fan favorite. Like, I don't think he's like going to be like being rooted for to win a tournament. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can get there with that. So you were asking guys like lower down. Hubbard, 6,300. You know, he finally showed up again for the first time in like months at Pebble, and he's made a couple cuts here with the top 10. And then 2 guys right back to back, right below him, Hahn and Hoffman. Both guys have pretty good course history. And Charlie Hoffman, I mean, we haven't seen him play well in months, and he played pretty well at Pebble. He had a bad Sunday, or I should say Monday. But up until that point, he had played pretty well at Pebble. So maybe those two guys, if you're just taking a flyer, and these are darts down here. Like if you're looking for somebody, like give me a guy that's going to make the cut. Like don't play anybody below $6,500 would be my best advice.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on.
All right, so the odds this week, I have two bets that I placed. First thing this morning when I got up to catch a flight to Cincinnati at like 4 a.m. The first bet I placed, I bet on Justin Thomas at 20-1. I just felt like that number was wrong, especially given his course history and in this field. I really, really liked that number. And then the other one that I bet is a little bit farther down, and it's just because I just feel like there's value in the number. It was Horschel at 80. That number I think could probably stretch to be 100 if you want to wait, but it also could be 60 here in a couple of days if people really dig into his stats. But I'll probably end up adding a couple more. I think either Finau or Morikawa will end up at 20, and if either one of those guys end up at 20, I will bet them. But other guys I'm thinking about, Young, and Hideki. I like those three guys a lot. So it'll probably be a short card for me because I really only think there's 20 or 30 guys that can win this week in this kind of tournament. But right now, the only bets that I have on the board are Thomas and Horschel.
Yeah, I agree, man. I don't think I'm going to bet anyone beyond like 40-1 this week, 50-1 maybe. Because I mean, even though the guys down below I like DraftKings wise, like Ricky Fowler, Alex Noren, I just don't think they're going to win the tournament. So I think it is going to come from one of those top 20 guys. And the bets that I like are Cantlay, Sung Jae. I like those calls. I like the Hideki number 30. Those are pretty good values. But one bet that I will be placing this week, I will place a John Rahm and Kansas City Chiefs money line parlay, which pays about 19-1 this week. So I will be placing that. Just if John Rahm happens to win, I'll maybe hedge out of it and bet a little bit on the Eagles. But I like the Chiefs this week, and I like John Rahm to win this event. So that's going to be my parlay this week.
Chris, I know you're a top 20, top 5 kind of machine. Is there anybody out here looking at these odds? And obviously, odds are going to vary from book to book. Is there anything out here that you're like, ooh, that seems like a nice little bet?
I'm going to be looking to see what the odds are for Kirk and Connors, but at 80 and 110-1, I'm going to throw a little something on them to win. I feel like, stacked field, but I like the win equity at those numbers for those guys. And then at the top of the board, I just love Morikawa this week, so that's the name I'll say up there.
Yep, no, I'm with you there. Like I said, he was on my short list for the one and done this week, and obviously I ended up going a different direction when I saw you pick Morikawa because I didn't want to have the same pick. But we'll get into that here in 2 seconds. So in our one and done league, Chris, obviously you are killing it. You and Jake, the football guys, absolutely smashing us. Me and Rick bringing up the rear, the two guys that do a golf show every week and dig into data and have all this other BS. We're at the bottom there, and our boy Mike is right in the middle. But you guys are out to a big lead, Chris, and we have some interesting picks this week. Why don't you lead us off, Chris, with who you picked?
Yeah, I went with Morikawa. It's because of the stats that are needed to win at this course. Tee to green, hard to argue that he's anywhere out of the top 3 to 5 in the world. Pair that with his current form, a second place and a third place and a 6th place, I believe, in his last 3 tournaments. Guy's absolutely scorching hot. The only thing that makes me not go all the F in every, betting DraftKings one and done everything is he's borderline atrocious around the greens. And, that's a stat that will help you this week. So, if there's one holdup for me on Morikawa, if it's a little bit tougher than normal around the greens, I could see him, not necessarily having a top 10 week, but love him otherwise.
Yep. For me, after back-to-back zeros with Will Z and Maverick Neely the last 2 weeks, I need a check, and I'm going to go right to the top of the board. John Rahm, this is a good time to use him, I think. Arizona guy. He's going to be playing that 16th hole in his Arizona State jersey, and get the crowd fired up. I think he's a very, very good candidate to win this week. Elevated event, $3 million first place. A winning check from him this week will put me right back in it. So I'm ready for Ram to use him this week, and I'm glad that no one else used him because I think that gives me a little bit of leverage there.
Just like Matt McNeely was a Pebble Beach guy.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting though, because of the strategy, and Rick mentioned it, with so much money being pumped into these elevated events, especially for one and dones. To your point, if you end up hitting a winner or a guy who finishes top 5, it's almost as much as a win in any other regular field event. So it is important to use your guys in these events to try and get as much win equity as you can on the board. I went with Thomas for the same reason. That if you look at strokes gained data at this course, nobody has gained more strokes than Justin Thomas. So I'm going to rely onto the numbers and say, okay, I'm going to get the guy who plays the best consistently at this course. So that's why Justin Thomas is my pick. Obviously, Mike picked Xander. Xander's a very solid pick, very popular this week, also has a lot of success here. And then Jake went with Victor Hovland. I would love to shit all over Jake's picks, but
can't do it.
It can't. I took Kisner last week, and that worked out much better than my Joel Dahmen pick. I'll just say that. So I know Hovland's missed 2 cuts here, but the last thing I'm going to do is naysay on Jake because he's been throwing these random picks out. They've been hitting.
Yeah, I agree. I can't shit on him until he misses a cut. So, those are our picks this week. Chris, you're going to be there pretty much. You're going to be in the Phoenix area pretty much all weekend. So,
yeah.
What are you going to be doing? I know you're going to the tournament on Thursday. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, going to the tournament Thursday. Got some pretty sweet wristbands. I'm going to try to meet up with Rick Rungood. He's there all 4 days.
Yeah.
So he's at the CBS tent doing something for social media. So I'm going to try to go by there and take a selfie with him if I can. Like listening to his podcast a lot. So that's what I'm doing Thursday. After that, I'm going to hit as many Super Bowl parties as possible and try to figure out who to bet on for the Super Bowl. But speaking of Super Bowl, we're having a podcast tomorrow, right? About Super Bowl props.
Yep. I'm totally in for that. Tony, you're going to be around to do that tomorrow?
We'll see. I'm going to try and make time for it. I've got a bunch of stuff happening out here on the road. I'm traveling this week, but if I can, I'm going to try and jump on and do the prop show because I love hearing you guys' picks on the props. Much better at the NFL betting than I am. I love to throw out my opinion, which is definitely wrong more times than it is right. But I do tell everybody jump on that show because Rick and Chris are well versed in the betting markets in NFL. So it's always good to get your guys' perspective on that stuff.
Yep. Tune in tomorrow for that. If Tony's not here, Mike will be here and we'll be talking Super Bowl. And man, have fun this week. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it out, but don't get too drunk. Actually, do get too.
Yeah, travel safe, Chris, man. Have a great time. Shoot us some Instagram stories live from the Waste Management and from the Super Bowl. When if you get in a party and you're shooting dice in the back with a bunch of Pittsburgh Steelers or whatever, get that on video. Show that to us. We want to see
Chris, there's a spot. I forget exactly where it is, but I was listening to Pat Mayo's show earlier, and he said it's like there's a hill to the right of the 17th hole where
they roll down it, right?
People get super drunk and just pass out and roll down the hill. If you get a video of that, somebody doing that, that'd be pretty damn hilarious.
For sure. Yeah, I'm going to try to take some good videos. Maybe we can show them on the golf podcast next week of some live videos from my phone.
Cool. All right, man. Have fun.
Chris, safe travels.
Thanks for the invite. Appreciate you. First golf show ever. This was fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you came on. It's always cool to hear another perspective. Rick and I, we get tired of, beating on each other every week. So it's nice to hear somebody else talk about what they think and what they see. So I would remind everybody to subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. It goes a long way to us. Like we mentioned, there is much more than just golf content on this channel. So you can hear the Super Bowl shows, the fantasy football shows. We're going to do a show about quarterbacks and where guys are going to end up. Although we will have to edit some of that because Tom Brady was on there and he is now retired officially. We'll see how long that actually lasts. But for everybody that tuned in, thanks again. Appreciate it, Chris, Rick. Everybody have a great night and best of luck this week at the Waste Management.
See you.